The desert trembled, not from wind, but from the sound of his hand brushing the metal at her throat. She flinched as if electrocuted, eyes wide, breath cracking. Don't touch it," she whispered. "If that collar arms, everything living for 1,000,000 miles becomes ash." He froze. For the first time, he realized he wasn't just holding a prisoner. He was holding the end of the world. The desert had once been a continent, alive with cities, oceans, and the riot of human ambition. Now it was a blistered graveyard, 10,000 years of history reduced to fused glass dunes and skeletal metal towers half buried in sand. Heat rippled in trembling sheets across the horizon, blurring distance until everything looked like a mirage. The air carried an old bitterness, as if the ground still remembered the weapons that had torn it apart. The man walked alone, a desert cloak flapping against his legs, boots crunching lightly over brittle glass. His lungs ached with every breath of scorching air, but solitude had become his companion long before the world died. No one survived out here unless they learned to travel without leaving footprints, to keep moving even when hope felt like a story better suited for children. 3 hours passed without signs of life. Then a sound cracked the quiet, sharp, fragile, human. He stopped immediately, hand shifting toward the knife at his belt. In the wasteland, anything that made noise without intention was usually hunting. He strained to hear again. Nothing, just the low hum of heat against metal ruins. He moved closer, slow and controlled, following instinct more than reason. His boots slid down a dune of powdered glass, sparks catching sunlight like scattered diamonds. At the base of the slope, something blue broke the monotony of brown and gold. A body lay half submerged in sand, limbs bound by chain links thick as climbing anchors. She wasn't human. Her skin was deep cobalt, bruised with exhaustion and heat. Muscles defined every contour. She was built like something engineered to run, fight, or kill. But the thing that drew his eye wasn't the chains. It was the collar around her throat. Smooth, matte black, pulsing with a dim red glow like a heartbeat. Too perfect, too seamless, too dangerous. He knelt, brushing sand away from her face. Her eyelids fluttered, revealing eyes the color of molten gold. She reacted instantly, breath hitching, terror cracking through her exhaustion. When he reached toward the collar, she lunged weakly, voice raw and urgent. "Don't, please. If it arms, nothing lives for 1,000,000 miles." He froze, not because he didn't believe her, but because something in her tone suggested she wasn't exaggerating. Her pulse throbbed wildly beneath the collar, and the red glow brightened, sensing stress. Living landmines weren't folktales. Humanity had built monsters in the war years, some chemical, some biological, some mechanical. But this one looked back. This one could feel fear. He had barely processed her warning when the ground beneath them shifted. Not the lazy drift of sliding sand, but a deep, deliberate tremor that made the earth feel alive. The woman sucked in a sharp breath, her eyes widening with a kind of fear that came from experience, not imagination. "They're coming," she whispered. He didn't ask who. In the wasteland, the who was usually less important than the how fast. He dug his fingers into the sand, searching for the anchor point of the massive chain buried beneath her. His hands burned instantly. The sand was hot enough to blister, but he ignored the pain, scraping until iron met bone and skin. He hit metal, a stake driven into the earth like a spear. "Don't rush," she warned, voice trembling. "If my pulse climbs too fast, the collar starts the countdown." He gave a short, humorless breath. "Great, so we just have to escape slowly while something underground comes to eat us." Her lips twitched. Not quite a smile, but the closest exhaustion could manage. The desert rumbled again. Sand just beyond them buckled upward, forming a dome that cracked open as something massive passed underneath. He wrapped both hands around the metal stake and pulled. It didn't budge. He braced a foot against the sand and pulled again, muscles screaming. The stake shifted slightly. The ground shook harder. "Hold it together," he murmured, glancing at her collar. The red glow brightened, reacting to her panic. She closed her eyes, inhaled shakily. trying to calm her body as death tunneled beneath them. He ripped the stake free. Her chains went slack. She didn't wait for help. She rolled to her feet with a predator's explosive grace, despite dehydration and restraint burns. Together, they scrambled up the dune. A roar erupted behind them, and a creature broke the sand's surface. A serpentine body plated in metallic chitin, eyes rimmed in molten amber. It hissed, tasted the air, and oriented toward the sound of their racing heartbeats. "Run!" she gasped. He didn't argue. They sprinted across the dunes, the ground vibrating as the monster tunneled after them. Then the world grew quiet. Too quiet. He noticed the shadow first. A silhouette standing at the dune's crest ahead. Tall, still, familiar to her based on the way she stopped breathing. Another emerged. Then another. Not monsters. People, blue-skinned like her, armored in bone and metal. Ice cold and merciless. Her voice cracked. "My clan." The clan didn't rush them. They simply stood, blocking every direction of escape, as if the desert itself answered to their command. Their bone masks caught the sun like pale armor, and the metal riveted into their skin told a story he didn't yet understand. But the woman beside him did. He saw it in the way her shoulders lowered, not in surrender, but resignation. The largest of them stepped forward. She wore half a skull over her face, the bone polished smooth, and her eyes burned the same gold as the woman he'd just pulled out of the sand. "Vera," she said, voice roughened by years of surviving what should have killed her. "You were supposed to die under the dunes. That was the law." The woman, Vera, swallowed once, collar pulsing faint orange. "I survived," she replied quietly. "Wrong answer," the leader said. "Survival is only honorable if we take the world with us when they come for us. You knelt. You begged for life. And now you stand beside a human." Her gaze shifted to him, flattening him with one glance. "No human ever shields a huntress. Who is he to you?" He didn't have a clean answer, not one that would make sense to warriors shaped by pain. Before he tried, the ground behind them trembled. The creature was circling back, sand rippling in widening arcs. "We don't have time for this," he said. The bone-masked woman didn't look back. "If the beast kills you, we accept that. If your collar arms and ends everything with you, we accept that too." She leaned in, predatory. "But we won't let you leave." Vera's collar flared brighter. Too fast. Too scared. He stepped in front of her, putting his body between her and the spear tips leveled at her throat. "She can't calm down with you threatening her," he said. "Unless we all want to become radioactive wallpaper, maybe take 3 steps back." Several warriors shifted uneasily. The leader's eyes narrowed. She opened her mouth and stopped. The collar emitted a sharp, rising whine, and every trained instinct in the group froze. Vera squeezed her eyes shut. I can't stop it." He didn't think. He just reached for her shoulders. "Then borrow my breathing," he whispered. "Right here, right now. Stay with me." She matched him barely. The collar dimmed back to red. The leader watched in silence. "A human steadies you," she murmured. "That is new." They didn't get a chance to finish that moment. A sharp crack split the air, gunfire. Sand erupted at their feet. The clan scattered instantly, vanishing into the dunes with the precision of predators that had survived too many ambushes to hesitate. He grabbed Vera's arm and pulled her toward the ridge, but they barely made 3 steps before floodlights slammed on, painting the desert in harsh white. Metal roared. Engines. Not the sleek hum of old-world machines. These were scavenged, rattling desert haulers plated with welded steel and rusted fins. "Raiders. Hold your fire," someone yelled. "If you hit the collar, we all go to hell." That made everyone freeze, raiders included. Vera's collar, still raw from panic moments ago, glowed a steady warning red. The man lifted his hands slowly, knife still sheathed. Vera did the same, though every muscle in her body screamed tension. Raiders surrounded them in seconds, rifles trained but fingers trembling. A single nervous twitch and they'd all turn into glowing glass statues. From behind the circle of weapons, a man stepped forward, tall, gaunt, part human and part machine. He wasn't armored like the rest. He wore a long coat and a thin expression carved by regret rather than brutality. "Bring them to my tent," he ordered calmly. "And don't touch her. The caller will see that as an escape attempt." No one argued. Inside the largest command tent, he studied Vera with professional focus. Not fear, not disgust, but scientific fascination. He scanned the caller with a handheld device, eyes flicking across holographic readings projected from his mechanical eye. "This model shouldn't be active anymore," he murmured. "Project Meridian was decommissioned decades ago." Vera stiffened. "You worked on them." He didn't deny it. "I was a junior systems engineer. I helped design the biometric lock triggers. At the time, I believed we were saving humanity from extinction. I didn't realize we were creating a prison that could never be escaped." There was no excuse in his tone, only exhaustion. He turned to the man who had sheltered Vera since the dunes. "And you? Why risk yourself for someone engineered to kill your kind?" "I didn't think about it," he answered honestly. "She needed help." The chain master stared as though studying a new species. "No fear, no hesitation. That's new." Vera's voice cracked, softer than before. "He didn't choose survival. He chose me." For a moment, the chain master said nothing. Then he opened a metal case and withdrew a tiny data drive. "If you want her free," he said quietly, "this is the only chance you'll ever have." The journey to the hidden settlement took 2 days. 2 days of silence broken only by footsteps, dry wind, and the low hum of the collar that could end everything in a heartbeat. The chain master's stolen vehicle carried them halfway before fuel died in a cough of heat and dust, leaving the rest to be crossed on foot. Vera never complained, though her exhaustion showed in the way her steps started rigid and ended uneven. He offered water. She always shook her head. "Save it," she'd say. "You need it more." He knew she was lying to make it easier. By the time the settlement scraped into view, old metal towers wrapped in solar panels, laboratories built from rusted shipping containers, lights flickering like fireflies. Night had fallen. 2 guards confronted them until he spoke the name the chain master had given. Recognition flickered in their eyes, and they led them straight inside. Dr. Iris Kane didn't look like someone who designed weapons that could erase an entire biome. She looked tired, like someone who had spent 30 years trying to make up for a single unforgivable choice. When she saw the collar, she exhaled. Not surprise, but grief. "I never meant for any of this," she said quietly. "But intentions don't undo suffering. Let's get you free." They brought Vera into an improvised surgical lab, clean enough to be safe, but filled with machines that had survived too many winters. Vera lay on a reinforced cot, jaw clenched as wires, scanners, and biometric readers circled her like vultures waiting for the outcome. Dr. Kane worked with precision, hands steady, voice calm. "When I start," she told Vera, "the collar will assume you're being tampered with. It will pain spike your nervous system to prevent escape. You need to hold on. If fear takes control, it arms. If adrenaline spikes too sharply, it arms. If pain crosses a certain threshold, then we don't get a second try," Vera finished. The man stood beside her, resting one hand on her shoulder. "I've got you. Stay with me." Dr. Kane activated the sequence. Vera's back arched, a torn sound escaping her throat. The collar flared white, and alarms began their merciless whine. The man didn't move, not even when her fingernails dug into his skin hard enough to draw blood. He whispered instructions like a lifeline, not calming her, but giving her rhythm, something to hold onto that wasn't pain. Then suddenly, a soft click. The lights on the collar died. Dr. Kane's hands trembled as she lifted it away, 30 years of slavery reduced to dead steel in her palms. Vera sucked in a breath like someone experiencing air for the first time. Her hand flew to her bare throat. No lock, no pulse sensor, no executioner, just skin. She didn't speak at first. She cried quietly, the way someone cries when their body remembers what hope feels like before the mind does. The man pulled her into his arms, not as rescuer or guardian, but simply as someone who refused to let her grieve alone. When she finally found her voice, it was soft, shaking. "What now?" He didn't have a dramatic answer. He just smiled, tired but real. "Now you get to choose." For the first time in her life, she did. And as the desert swallowed their footprints, one truth remained. Some explosions never start with metal, but with a heartbeat learning to trust again.